Welcome to the Ride With Us podcast, presented by the American Coaster Enthusiasts, the world's largest ride enthusiast organization dedicated to the appreciation, promotion, and preservation of roller coasters around the globe. So please keep your hands and feet inside the podcast at all times as we welcome in your host.
Hello, enthusiasts. It's your host, Jessica Gardner. Spring has sprung. Parks and coasters are opening all around the world, and ACE has an amazing lineup of events coming in June. But before we get to the June events calendar, we need to talk about the 2024 ACE Spring Conference. It was at Kings Island in Ohio this year, and it was pretty epic. If you weren't there, you need to hear about the ERT. That's exclusive ride time on coasters, the behind the scenes tours, the presentations, the silent auction, the surprise silent auction, and of course, the night rides. Believe it or not, 5 members of the podcast team were there. And right now there's 4 of us here to tell you about this wonderful weekend. So please welcome John Davidson, Doug Perry, and Derek Perry. Welcome, guys.
Hi, Jessica.
Hey, thanks for having us. Yeah, it'd be great to relive it.
Right. And it was so fun to see you all at SpringCon and get some coaster rides in and catch up. I'm thinking the best way to dig into this is just to go right into in chronological order and start with Friday and go all the way to Sunday. But yeah, let's just recap it for everybody. What do you think?
That sounds terrific.
So on Friday, the park normally opens at 10 a.m. Kings Island normally opens at 10 a.m. on Friday. May 17th was when it was. But the parking lot opened for Acers at 6:30 in the morning. That's right. If you're listening to this and you're not a member of ACE and you're like, why should I join? This is a really great reason. You get some real exclusive time in this park to yourself. So who was at? Was anyone at the first? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, to be fair, we beat the parking lot attendance there. That's how
Really?
early we were. Yes, all the gates were up. So, I mean, this is John. I'll go first and just say that, unfortunately, the way the weather turned out, the first couple hours of ERT was involving light sprinkles. So Orion, if you're not familiar with that, is a very fast coaster. So that makes the rain even that more exciting.
I heard that there were some people like Javan from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team, right? They were telling me that the rain was hurting their eyes so bad that they needed to ride Orion again. But they did it and they loved it.
It's one of the first times where you wouldn't want to do it in the front row because so the line for the front was relatively low, but that it wasn't just Orion for the ERT. It was also Friday Fair, which is an indoor coaster. So there was other opportunities to not get wet for the ERT.
Correct. And then the Kings Mill Antique Autos. Did you get to ride those, John? He stuck to the coasters.
I think Derek did during ERT that morning.
Yeah, I love that they brought the antique cars back and just being on the track, riding by the other ACE members, waving. It was a great way to start the spring conference and to see, oh, I didn't know that person was here. I didn't know that person was here. I haven't seen them in a while. But speaking of cars, before we even got into the park, did you see that huge sign that Kings Island has in the parking lot for cars going by on the freeway? They had a welcome to ACE Spring Conference sign up on that huge digital sign. So that got the whole thing started. So I thought that was really cool. And yeah, I love the antique cars, how they have the old throwback advertisements and everything. So yeah, it was a fun-filled ERT for sure.
And there was also ERT on both sides of the racer too. So did you guys hit that as well?
Oh, yes. Actually, Bob and I did a dueling front row. He was in the front row of one, and I was in the front row of the other, and he smoked me. I mean, it wasn't even close. I couldn't even pretend like they weren't winning. I mean, it was almost a full car length. So he was definitely. But it was tiered or was staggered. There was so much ERT that they started with Orion, and all those rides that we talked about already ran for an hour, and then they added more rides. So we had a full 2 hours of ERT. So it was nice that they brought different coasters in at different times, so you weren't getting bored riding the same thing over and over again.
I thought the racer was running great, both sides of it with the retrack, and it was so smooth. And it was so fun looking across, like John was saying, at the other ACE members and seeing which one was going to pull ahead. So yeah, I love racing coasters during ERT. It's like one of my favorite things.
That's so fun. And so then also Zephyr. Which one is Zephyr? I'm trying to remember.
I think it's the swings, right?
Is that the one that you go up the tower and then you go in a circle on the swings?
No, that's Windseeker. This is the smaller one, like the yo-yo at Rocky Point, like a wave swinger, kind of.
Like a wave
yes,
swinger.
That's it. Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't think I got on that. My focus was coasters. I'll admit it was
understandable. That was your first time at Kings Island.
It was. What a beautiful park. My very first impression of this park was just how beautiful it was. Now, I've been to Kings Dominion before, which, as most of you know, is the sister park of this. So I'd seen, but that beautiful Eiffel Tower and the fountains, and just really the colors of this park, and then also just all of the woods around it. I was just so struck by what a really beautiful park it is. The theming of International Street just really got to me right away. I was like, okay, this is a very photographable park, I would say, was my first impression. So yeah, that ERT, I missed the first ERT, sadly, that morning. But I had heard as I was rolling in the exciting news that they were, for the weekend, allowing adult ACE members, or adults in general, on the Great Pumpkin Coaster. So when I got into the park, ERT was over, but I beelined toward that credit. It's so funny, like, of all the things that people go to Kings Island to do. And I was like, I got to get that credit.
Well, you were like many people in the Cincinnati area, like the great Snoopy coaster. Yeah, it was probably their first coaster too. So that was your first coaster at Kings Island.
Hey, but that does bring up a good point. I mean, I got 2 credits on 2 kid roller coasters I had never ridden, mostly because of this event, because that is a ride that you cannot ride without a child, and frankly, I can't imagine sticking too many people inside. It's a pretty tight coaster.
Yeah, it was for sure. What was the other one that you got?
It's technically one I could have ridden, I just hadn't yet. It's the wood coaster. That's the smaller one for the
Woodstock
kids.
Express.
Can't remember the name of it. There you go, Woodstock Express. I hadn't had that credit yet.
There's Woodstock Express, and then the other one is Woodstock's Air Rail. So it's a little confusing there. But yeah,
I did have the Air Rail credit, but they repainted that ride, and it looks so much nicer now.
I loved that. I rode the back row of that. I thought that was really fun and cute, and I was not expecting it to be as fun as it was. I really enjoyed that.
Yes, you almost believe the stereotypes, so you think you're gonna hate it, so then it surprises you because it's actually better than you're thinking it's gonna be.
Yeah, that was really great. So then after ERT, the park opened. Did any of you go to the behind the scenes experience tour of the Racer and Orion?
I did, but real quick, just one little nugget that is actually kind of good too is when ERT ends, the park hasn't opened yet, right? So you have one little shot right there where you are well in the park before anyone else does. So you also have one opportunity to grab the front line right when park opens for another ride that wasn't part of ERT. So you have this kind of, I don't know if you would call it a cheat way to jump to the front of the line, but you have that time right when the park opens where you can just get right in the front and be one of the first rides on one of the coasters that's not in ERT.
That's a hot tip right there. So what did you do that? Did you beeline towards something?
We were, so in this particular instance, I did stunt coaster because that ride is hard to pass up when there's no line. And for some reason it usually gets a long line, but I did go on the behind the scenes tour for the Racer and Orion, and I am surprised, and this might get a little bit into the signage that we'll get to later, but they had everything laid out. You had walking paths. You got to walk right up to the fence, and then they had like signs made just for the tour that said, here's your invisible line not to go by. And then I think the best thing about this tour is when you go all the way to the end, you get to actually catch the racer at the point where they divide. So the coasters, if you haven't ridden this yet, they run together for the first part, kind of the out and back. And it's the point where they break apart and one goes to the left, one goes to the right. And you can almost pretty much stand like so you're facing them, so you can just see them go on either side of you. So it's a pretty cool place to stand.
To stand, to take videos. So yeah, so anybody who's confused about what BTS of behind the scenes means in this scenario, I feel like we should explain it. Basically, you get to go in the restricted areas that normally is reserved for maintenance teams and park employees. At Kings Island specifically, that's like the wooded, grassy areas behind and between the coasters. And so just unique shots of the coasters, unique angles that most people don't normally get to see. We get to see, mechanical views, things that aren't normally meant for the public to see. And you're right. I was also surprised at the signage there. Some of the signage had history. It sort of let you know what you were looking at, or had just a little bit of like, just some fun facts about each of the coasters that I thought that was so cool. Doug and Derek, did you get to do this behind the scenes tour, or did you run to get to the front of coasters as well?
Of course, I wouldn't have missed it. I loved watching the Orion train zoom around the track, and you got to be so close to it. I even have a new appreciation for Orion, seeing it that close and seeing the people reacting on it. It was awesome. And then all the ACE volunteers who were there, making sure we didn't get too close to the ride. Leanne from the publications team, she was there. John Keeter, who was on the podcast before. It was neat talking to them too about just the event and what we had in store for the weekend. But yeah, I loved that behind the scenes tour.
And after that, there was some free time, right? Because that behind the scenes tour was until 11. And then the next behind the scenes tour was at 1. So more coasters. And then, of course, if you wanted to, and again, none of these were all mostly self-guided tours. Like we had access to the area. You could have gone and just spent 2 minutes, 5 minutes, gotten a picture, turned around and left. Or you could have stayed there the entire time. It was just open if that's your thing. So I really liked how it was sort of like a choose your own adventure, depending on like, are you dying to get back into the park, but you want to see from this angle? Or do you really want to spend some time? But I believe the sign shop tour was a little bit different. John or Derek, were you able to make it to that?
This is John. I was there. It was pretty amazing. When you think of signs, you think kind of like, I don't know, you just think about those square things that you see in the parking lot, and you don't really, do not enter or whatever. But this is so much more. They actually at Kings Island make individual signs for all the events. So they had not replicas, they had duplicates of all the ACE signage that they had done for this event. And then they had signs for things that had been defunct. So there was kind of 2 big scenarios for this tour. The first one was a smaller room where it had the computers in it, and they had somebody from the sign shop that was there, and they talked through like how they do the designs on the computer, and they had like a couple printers going, and they had like, you could just ask them any questions about anything, and then they have all the stock images for all the things from Cedar Fair and all of those particular things. So it was a very interactive, you can talk, you can explain a little bit. So they had some things going on the printer. And then the other one was in the opened area, which is, I'm going to say more like a garage or like a pole barn kind of thing. And then they had all of these signs from all kinds of things that are defunct, and that was so fun because you listen to all these ACE members say, "Oh, do you remember that one?" And they would point at something, and and it was just kind of interesting to see that, and it doesn't just stop at signage. It also had, like, when they have signs and they have foliage that's connected to the signs, and barrels that are part of the atmosphere. They had all of those things also, so that you kind of started to see how they built maybe a little bit of the theming along with the signage. So it was really cool. And that one, the open area, was a little more free range, where you can just kind of go through and look at all the old stuff, and they literally have just tons of old stuff lined up, stacked on top of yourself. So it was really cool, like a trip down memory lane if you've been at Kings Island before.
And it looks like Bob Randolph has just joined us. Hi, Bob.
Hey, how's it going, gang?
Great. Thanks for coming and talking about your experience at the spring conference. You were also at the sign shop tour, right?
The sign shop was really cool because, and I kind of caught what the tail end of John said, that you get to see some of the stuff from years gone by. And one of the things that they were doing is they had a CNC router that was there, and they were actually making a sign as we were walking through the shop. And I later found out that sign was at the silent auction. They made a beast sign and put the American Coaster Enthusiast logo on it. They were actually creating that as we walked through. So it was really neat to see, because they had the router and you could see kind of the partially finished product. He had the picture of what it's going to look like up on the door into that area. And then you could see the computer doing its thing. Really super neat to see all that stuff. Some things that are coming up, like the wine festival that they've got coming up, the Wine and Food Fest. They have the signage for that in there right now. So we kind of got a sneak peek of that a little bit.
Did they let you take pictures in there?
Yeah, I've got pictures of a lot of that stuff. I'll have to get them uploaded. But I mean, there's so much, there was almost too much to take in because it's so many years of things. And I mean, it just goes, I don't even know how far it goes back, but you can tell it goes back a long way. They've got beast signs in there. They've got some of the old Hanna-Barbera stuff is still in there. Again, just really neat to go in and see all of that history and things that aren't in the park anymore, but the signage still exists. And that was pretty cool. They had the slingshot sign in there for us. They put that up specifically for us to look at because that's gone. That's what's now the Adventure Port area. So they had that for us to look at. And, again, the sign shop was really cool. The folks in there were really nice. They would explain anything and everything. They were actually working on some stuff. I don't know exactly where it's going in the park, but they were working on it as we were walking through. So it was neat to see them actually create it as we're walking by.
That just kind of blows my mind that we're able to take pictures of these kind of things. I guess, we think of them as like such exclusive and like things because this is our fandom, maybe it's not that big of a deal. I remember being excited on another ACE event where we were able to go into the mechanical shop and they just let us take pictures of everything they were working on in there. And we were like, really? Like boxes from B&M and remember like old signs. I was just like, what's going on? And like, things that said intimate on it. I was like, what? We can just like go up and are you sure?
The stuff that's commonplace to them on an everyday basis to us is like holy wow.
Can I just like, are any of these for sale? Can I make an offer? Anyway.
Can I peek in that box, please?
Just want to know, what's the label on this say? It says brand new, do not touch. Oh, well, that sounds amazing. That right around that time is when I was able to show up to the park because there was no way, no matter what I had going on that morning, there was no way I was missing the behind the scenes tour of the Beast that started at 3:30. Y'all, this was amazing. Listeners, it was a combination of pavement and loose gravel. There was definitely some hilly moments, but if you've been on the Beast and you know how far that thing goes into the woods, and they just opened the gates for us and let us walk back there. So I had not yet been on the Beast and yet got to see a behind the scenes tour. And of course, at first everybody's looking at that first drop and all of that. But then, of course, I think that the showstopper was absolutely the double helix and the tunnel. And the fact that the tunnel was actually kind of curved blew a lot of people's minds. I must have spent 30 minutes there getting video of that. How about you all? What were your reactions to this tour?
It's that I think you hit it right there. It's amazing, and you almost like look at it and you have to think in your head. Well, so we'd ridden it before, so it's like, whoa, I didn't know that's what it. Like I didn't think I realized that it went in on the top and came out on the bottom. I was just kind of looking at it. I'm like, this is crazy, and you get to see everything like kind of shake as the trains go by because they're running full trains. So it's a really cool experience, especially to hear it. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was the first time that I ever got to see the Helix. This was not the first time that I've done something like this, but you get inside of that Helix and you're both absolutely 100% correct. You look at it and just go, wow. I mean, your jaw just drops and hits the ground because you don't expect what you're seeing. No matter how many times I had ridden it before, I see that double helix from the inside of it. And you realize just how mammoth the structure that is. And then you think about riding it and you hit those, the covered bridge, if you will, the tunnel, and you go through that and you're like, wow. And then to see trains go through that, it's absolutely mind-boggling. And again, when you go back to like that second lift hill and you get to see the chain and smell the chain grease, and for us coaster folks, that's like crack to be able to smell that while you're standing right there seeing it. But it was, again, that was a really neat behind the scenes tour that when you get the opportunity to do it, you take it. It is that iconic of a coaster. It is that iconic of a tour.
And Hunter Lawrence from the Gravity Group, who's also an ACE member, she was there at the ACE Spring Conference. So she was back there and she was pointing out areas that the Gravity Group worked on the Beast. So that was really cool to hear her perspective. Yeah, I didn't realize that I knew it was a massive plot of land, but I didn't realize how massive it was. And there were acers all over the place. And it seemed like that was one of the highlights, I think, of the weekend. Everyone loved it. And I didn't realize that the tunnels actually went underground at some points, and there were like service roads and walkways. It was a really awesome experience to see. And it was something that, like you said, Bob, everyone should try and get it to see it at some point in their life.
Yeah, that was awesome. Like you said, Derek, standing above the ground and like the trains of the beast rushing under you. I didn't want to leave that tour. Like they had to kick us out. I could have spent way more time there than I did. And I was there for a good amount of time.
That was also the first place that I started running into some of the Kings Island employees. They were all there, and it seemed like they all wanted to be there at that location as well. And that was where I think every single Acer from Spring Conference was there. So that was where we all started running into each other and saying hi. We saw events director Steve Burdo. I ran into Elizabeth Ringus there, our ACE president. And so I felt like that was like the first official, like really big meeting place, and everybody's just the excitement was there, and the beast is going around us, and everybody's got their cameras out, and it was just a phenomenal moment. And start of a lot of good conversations of where are we going next. But yeah, they had to kick me out too. I was just enthralled by the beauty of it all as well. We had some time. Then we had dinner at the Picnic Grove. They had this lovely area that every day that we were able to have dinner in, that was sort of exactly what it sounds like. It's like a events picnic area, kind of covered outdoor picnic tables. They had a lovely buffet for us. I thought the food was great. And shout out to Kings Island for also having gluten-free, vegetarian, and vegan options. So thank you if you're all listening. We appreciate that so much over here in the allergy community. And we had a stage with a DJ. People were dancing. And there were some announcements made about the week. And yeah, anybody else comment on the food, dinner?
I liked the ice cream.
The ice cream was good. And I liked that eat section of the catering area. Did you notice it had a different name? It was named after a different ride. I saw the Scrambler and the Racer. So I thought that was a cool little touch.
And there was a dessert that was a nod to the blue ice cream. It wasn't ice cream, but it was
like a pudding. Yeah, it was like a mousse, I think they called it, like blue mousse.
Yeah, it was definitely a nod to the blue ice cream, which is something that Kings Island is well known for.
Yeah, which I had for the first time. And I have to say, at first I was like, what is this a thing? People couldn't even really describe the taste to me when I asked about blue ice cream, but I'm a convert because I had my first bite of it and went, yeah, okay, I get it. I think it's blue raspberry. That's my thought. Does anybody else agree with me?
I think you're right. And did you see Elliot from the DEI committee? Elliot's tattoo is of blue ice
Blue ice
cream.
cream. Yeah.
Yeah,
So they told me that I could not leave without, and so I said, "Do not worry, Elliot, I got it." So I had it twice, and also I tried the mousse. But yeah, I get the hype around the blue ice cream. If you're listening to this and you've never been to Kings Island, it's a must-have for sure, and you can't miss it. It's everywhere. So that's good. So then we get to the DJ. That was fun. Then everybody kind of did their own thing. And then we get to 9 p.m. The park is closed, but not for Acers because we got ERT on. Oh my gosh, ready for this? Snoopy Space Buggies, which I did not ride. Franklin's Flyers, which I did not ride because I was so busy getting in my ERT on Diamondback, Mystic Timbers, and the Beast. The famous Beast night rides. I want everybody to tell me their experience on ERT that first night.
First, I think I started on Mystic Timbers, so a night ride on Mystic Timbers and Diamondback, and then headed over to the Beast. Night rides on the Beast are my favorite thing in the world. And then Derek and I, we went. I think that was the night we went back to Diamondback, and we were just like marathon Diamondback for a while.
yeah, it was a dream come true, a night ride on all those rides. And there was an ACE member there who he said he rode Diamondback 25 times in that first ERT. He loves Diamondback and he couldn't get enough of it. But yeah, we just kept on going back and forth between the front seats, the back seats, the wing seats. It was a dream come true.
Did you pick a favorite seat, favorite row? We got to hear.
I think my favorite row on Diamondback is the last row on the left side, the wing seat. And when you go over that splash down at the end and the water spraying up, one time I like kind of looked over to the side and my face was splashed with water. It was exhilarating. But on the Beast, people were saying row 17, the second to last row on the Beast. That was the row to
Magic
ride in.
row. Yeah, let's talk about this, right? Because I didn't hear this until the very last day. Row 17 is supposed to be this magic row on the Beast that somehow is not as rough as the other seats. Did anybody get a chance to ride row 17?
I've done it quite a few times. I think the advantage to that seat is you're in the back, so you get all the whip of the coaster, carrying you over a lot of the hills, but you're not on a wheel seat. So because the trains, there's three sections to each. So if you're in the very back, the very, very back seat, you have a wheel. And if you're three from the back, you have a wheel. But that one right there, you're like kind of in between both wheels. So they say it's smoother. And it is. I don't know how many times I would wait extra for that, but it is definitely smoother.
Wow. But still, I'm guessing like a crazy, crazy wild ride, but somehow smooth.
Well, so you have to remember the Beast it's an older coaster and it is a wood coaster and it's a legacy, ride. So it's as smooth as you can make a wood coaster. And I think we already mentioned it when we were talking about the Gravity Group is there, but that ride is so much better right now at night with that double helix having just a little bit more bank to it, and you just blast. And I think can't remember if it was Derek or Doug that mentioned it going underground. That right when you just bust out of the ground, and it's like you're running like almost in the dark into the forest, and is just crazy. And I think that's where that ride just gets so much of its intensity, and why it's so much better at night. It's the fact that you can't see hardly anything. You're like lit by the moonlight, and you're like going through the middle of the trees in the middle. Like it's like you're going out into the forest. Is really cool. You just kind of have to do it.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. What's funny is, the park closes at 9 p.m. and at 9 p.m. it wasn't really like it was just getting dark. So like you can't get on this coaster at night unless you're at the A Spring Conference that weekend. I mean, it's just it was so special that we were all able to get this. And yeah, for me it was my very first ride on the Beast. Was
It's
in the
awesome that
dark.
your first ride was at night.
I think
That is
I
pretty
think we
awesome.
were like row 6 or 7. I had no idea what was going on. I mean, I knew what I had seen during the behind the scenes tour. And I just was like, like I just literally just, you gotta
Well, you just jumped in
let
with both
yourself go.
feet,
I
didn't you?
really did. The tunnels were so confusing. It was really like something out of a nightmare. Like it seemed to be never ending, and it did not seem to let up at all. And so I was very anxious to ride it during the day.
And when they
After
did
that,
all the advertising, all the initial advertising for the Beast, it was, unleash the Beast and watch out, the Beast is going to get you. And all the advertising was very heavily, this thing lives in the woods. And if you're not careful, it's going to get out and it's going to get you. And that's exactly what the Beast does. Again, for your first ride to be at night is number one, amazing. So let's ask you, Jess, what was the big difference between night and day? Because your very first ride, your very first time on this legendary coaster is at night, something that everybody wants to do. And then you got to do the boring version of it during the day.
No, it wasn't boring at all because first of all, it was I rode it during the day in the front row. I waited for the front row. And I'm so glad that I did because it was absolutely gorgeous to see the woods, all of the beautiful foliage. Of course, it's flying past you at how many miles per hour, but it was so
Right.
But being in the front row, you feel like it's just you and the coaster and this view. And then, of course, I actually was on Doug and Derek were on the train ahead of me, so we like passed each other in that, the hill there, the
lift hill and the return, yeah.
Yeah, so that was rad to be able to be like, "Hi guys." But yeah, wow, no, it wasn't boring at all. It was incredible. It was still absolutely wild. Those tunnels, I had my hands up, and then you get to the tunnels, and I put my hands down, like it was such like a moment of this is really intense, and what an amazing coaster. I have to, since I guess I'll just talk about my ERT experience, very similar. Was not expecting to love Diamondback as much as I did, but I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say it right now. This is my favorite coaster in the park. I love Diamondback, and for me, favorite row after trying the rows that I did, I think it's gonna be the second row because you get the wing, but still able to see in front of you. I don't need to get sprayed in the face with water. I do my hair and makeup, so I.
Come on, where's your sense of adventure?
It's fine. But the second row right on so you've got all of that air, so much air, and just put your hands up and feel like you're flying, and really gorgeous views of, I just kept saying, all the colors. I love is this seriously like one of the best painted parks in the country? I feel like the coasters and the signage, they have such like that Banshee sign. The signage is so beautiful and iconic and brightly colored. Anyway, those are the things I'm paying attention to, but also I just love the way Diamondback made me feel. Obviously the Beast was crazy. Like everybody said, what'd you think? And I was like, I'm not sure. Like, I feel like I just got attacked. So let me get back to you on that. And then Mystic Timbers. I really, really loved Mystic Timbers. What a fun ride that was. In fact, that first night, I really was thinking I might like Mystic Timbers more than the Beast. Is that against the law to say?
No, it's definitely not. I think they're different types of coasters, but I definitely think Mystic Timbers does not get enough love because that ride, it's got a lot more of the tight, really tight turns and a lot of banks, and especially at night too. I know the Beast is just running fast out of control, and Mystic Timbers is more, I don't know, like just whips you around. It's just, and it never lets up until the very end. I mean, it is like the Beast has got a couple spots where it's a little more calm, but Mystic Timbers is just to the wall all the entire time until it stops. It is
Yeah.
crazy.
And
And
of course,
I am with you. There's a lot of times where I'd rather do Mystic Timbers than the Beast. So I can understand your comment or question, I should say.
yeah, I felt like that was sacrilegious to say there when I was there in the park because the Beast gets so much attention and love. But I was like, wow, I really liked this one. I think I liked, not that we can like both of them, but if I'm ranking, I might have to put Mystic Timbers ahead, especially because of what happens in the shed, which we're not going to spoil here on the podcast. But let's just say there's a moment at the end that you better be ready and you better watch out. So,
And that's what I wanted to ask you, since again, this is your first time this is my home park. So I've been there a number of times, and I was there when they built Mystic Timbers, and all the hype was around what's in the shed. And did you go through it enough times to see everything that's in the shed?
not
Again, don't want to spoil
everything,
it for
but
everybody, but
let's just say there's a couple different things you might be able to see in the shed, and I saw two different ones. So,
all right.
yeah.
You only missed one then. You only missed
Yeah,
one.
okay. So then, Bob, if this is your home park, was this special to you in any way, Spring Conference? Or did it feel just sort of like, an everyday experience or?
No, well, I mean, from a ride standpoint, yeah, kind of maybe, because I've been on all these things a lot of times. But the one thing, and I don't know if you guys touched on this earlier, the fact that I was with all of you. That's what made it great for me this entire weekend. Because I've been on these coasters tons of times. I've got my rides in on the Beast. I've got my rides in on Diamondback, which by the way is my favorite in the park as well.
Yay.
I'm right there with you. Mystic Timbers is great. Banshee is great. Since they retracked the racers, even better than what it was before, because the racers are unbelievably smooth now. Again, kudos to the Gravity Group for everything that they've done for the wooden coasters at Kings Island. They've made them absolutely fantastic, even better than what they were. But the fact that I was there with all of you guys and people, as I tell my buddies, I wasn't the biggest coaster geek on the face of the planet that day. I was with all of the people who are right there with me. And, at that point, it's all the same knowledge. We all know the same stuff. And I don't feel out of place. It's that camaraderie. It's the fact that you guys all know the same amount of information that I do. I'm no longer the smartest kid in the room, but you know what? I'm okay with that because, man, was it a good time.
We had so much fun. I have to agree with you. There's so many. I really felt the camaraderie this trip more than other cons too, or maybe that's just growing the more that, we get to know people and it feels like we're all connected. The pandemic was tough, but thanks to all those digital events that ACE put on, I feel like we've met more people that way and just gotten to know each other and had all these people on the podcast. I had so many people that I get to thank for being on the podcast. So that was exciting. How about for you, John? What was that first ERT like for you? We didn't hear.
I think I'm kind of in the same boat as Bob in the fact that I live close enough to Kings Island. I'd done night rides on everything before. So I just really think, like we mentioned earlier about Mystic Timbers, that coaster, every time I get off that coaster, I think, oh man, I I forget how good that coaster is. And it's just crazy. No one talks about it. So I just think I'm just going to re-highlight the fact that Mystic Timbers, if it just doesn't get talked about enough, because that ride is just so much fun at night. And and I know if you're listening to this, you missed Spring Conference, so the ERT at night. Just kind of a pro tip, also, or not pro tip, or just something to think about is during the Halloween season. That's the best time to go to Kings Island because everybody's doing the haunt stuff, and you just get to ride the coasters at night. So there's my 2 cents. If you missed out, you can try to regain yourself in the Halloween season.
I love it. That's a great tip. Ignore the haunts and go right to the coasters.
Yeah, I do. Like everyone's talking about like the haunted houses, and I'm like, honestly, I didn't go to any of them. I just rode Mystic Timber and the Beast all night. And so anyway,
for Winterfest, as long as I forget what the exact temperature is, but if it's in like the 40s range, I think they still run Mystic Timbers during Winterfest.
What?
So it's the only one that's running in the park. but you can still ride a coaster during Winterfest.
Wow. That
And then
sounds
go
like
get
that'd
some
be
hot
cool.
chocolate immediately thereafter.
Yeah, because your face will be completely frozen.
Frozen.
Speaking of frozen, we would be remiss without also mentioning the snacks that are there during ERT. There were those funnel cake fries and some candy and soft drinks, unlimited soft drinks for us, which is just great. Keeps you going during all your coaster riding. So that night ended at 11 o'clock at night. We were the only people in the park. We were just ACE members and employees. And by the way, special shout out to all the ride operators who stayed on through the ERT and the employees who stayed there that late at night. Thanks. You were awesome. It was great to get to know some of you. What's up, Alexis? You're rad. So then we're moving on to Saturday, May 18th. The park opened at 8 a.m. for us, 10 a.m. for everybody else, 8 a.m. for us. ERT on Adventure Express, Banshee, and Soul Spin, followed by ERT on the Bat and Cargo Loco. Did anybody go to this ERT?
John and I did.
We did all of those. We did all of the things. As a matter of fact, we might have been on the first train for Adventure Express. I think that's how we opened it up. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, yeah, we were. There was still a little bit of water left on the train, and well, we dried it off for everybody. So you're welcome.
What do you mean, like from it being washed?
I think it had rained a little bit earlier that morning, so there was still a little bit of rain left on the seats where it hadn't quite completely been, thrown off of the train with running the normal test cycles. John and I sat down. We're like, okay, whoever sits down after us, you're welcome, because we just dried off the train for you. And then we also did. I had never been to the other rides. I never rode on Soul Spin. I didn't ride it last year when they opened it up. And I didn't go on Cargo Loco, so that was the first time for me to ride these rides was during this ERT. They are both surprisingly fun rides. I wasn't sure what to expect. Soul Spin, I actually did a lot more than I ever thought I would.
Yeah, those are really good flat rides. They're just like one of those things where it's always fun to do it, and usually the lines aren't horrible on those, but the barrels is what cracked me up because you were all about the barrels. And so I got a little history lesson when we were waiting in line that those are actually all modeled and they have the same lettering and everything off the original barrels when the park was, I don't know, what was it? How long ago did they close those, Bob?
Ooh, I don't know the exact time frame, but yeah, I mean, it's been a while since any of those rides were there, but yeah, they did pay tribute to those, to the older flat rides that they had. And then John informs me as we're in line for Cargo Loco, which is the barrels that you can spin yourself, that he has tried to throw his children out of the barrel by spinning it at 1,000 miles an hour.
I worded it. Hey, we did. I think we probably held the record for the most spins that morning. Because
at one point, I honestly thought that we broke the ride. I heard this vibration in our barrel, and I honestly thought that we had done something wrong. I was really concerned by the time we got stopped, and the room was spinning for a while after that. I can tell you that much.
Wow.
Yes, I definitely had to hold onto the side of the barrel when we got out.
That sounds fun. And I just Googled it. The first one's closed in 1989. The original barrels.
Thanks, Doug. We have to talk about Banshee for a second because, as I already mentioned, the beautiful paint and the beautiful sign on this. But this is probably the coaster at Kings Island that surprised me the most. You look at it and you go, you know what? This is nice little B&M invert. Okay, we waited for the front row, which I highly recommend doing because that was great. And of course, you get to the top of the lift hill, and the Banshee screams at you, which is unique and hilarious. And then you start how many inversions? I don't even know off the top of my head, but oh my gosh, this coaster has everything that you want in a B&M invert. I loved it. I literally thought I would just be like, oh, it's like Silver Bullet or, whatever. It's Dueling Dragon. Like, that's fine. That's great. I've been on this before. No, this is intense and just everything that you wanted. So much fun. I really loved it. Like, really. Anybody else have this experience?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite
Seven
B&M
inversions.
invert coasters. Yeah, and like John said, 7 inversions.
7. You just feel like you're upside down the whole time. It's so great.
That was my son's favorite ride for years. I think and the only thing that one upped it was Haggard's motorbike. But like for years that he literally would just want to ride Banshee over and over and over again. So I definitely realize what you're talking about. It is really cool.
After that ERT, it was time for the first ride of the day. The park opened and it was 10:30 at Kings Island and Miami Valley Railroad with the exclusive train talk. And something very unique happened during this. Was anybody there for it that wants to tell us about it?
John and I were.
I'll let you take this one, Bob, because it cracked me up. I think it was giggling the whole time.
This is a train ride, right? It just like goes in a circle.
Just your normal, everyday kind of run of the mill, nice and relaxing train ride until it wasn't. There is a slight grade that goes up from where you get on the train in the park to where it goes over to the water park side of things. And it's a slight grade. I've never noticed it before. However, when you have a 100% full train, and I mean 100% full, there was not a seat left on this train. I've never seen that before in all of the years that I've gone to Kings Island. John and I had to sit in seats that actually faced backwards to be able to ride the train. So we get to this grade and we notice that things are starting to slowing down a little more. Then somebody comes on the intercom and says, we're having some problems getting up this grade because early morning, first train of the day, sometimes this happens. Only problem was it's never happened with that many people before. So they ended up, we had to go to Kings Island to get a rollback, essentially, is what we're saying. So they roll the train literally from where this was all the way back into the maintenance shed because they had to reset some things. And so we actually got to go into the maintenance shed, which was not a scheduled part of the trip, by the way. So we go into the maintenance shed, we sit there for a couple of minutes, and then they roll us back up. And we went back to the original station, unloaded, and the next train of passengers got on. And
you're kind of underselling the station because they actually kept us in there, and they had the other. So there's 2 engines, and they are fixing the other engines. So we got not only a tour of the station and then the maintenance area, but then they also talked to us over in the overhead about the train that they were fixing, and some people came up to the side of the train who worked there. So we spent quite a bit of time back there. So it wasn't just like this really small thing, but the rollback on the train was hilarious because it was just kind of humorous because it literally did. It was trying to go forward and they stopped and the whole thing rolls back like 3 inches and pauses, and only in a train full of coaster people would you hear everybody say rollback credit on the train. So it was very kind of nerdy, but it was a nice surprise. And it was, what was really funny is when we get back to the station, then they're like, okay, well, everybody else, the second train, they decided to do the same thing. They didn't even try to go up the hill. They just backed it down.
Oh my God.
and then gave them the same tour. So it was kind of a joke there at the end that we had a last minute tour that wasn't planned.
Unscheduled tour. If you listen to our last episode, listeners, Mike Kuntz, the vice president of the park, mentioned, he's like, I hear you guys get to ride the train backwards. Even I've never done that. So it got all the way to him that this happened, which I just think is great. You never know what's going to happen with a group full of acers. And speaking of groups of acers, there is something I skipped that happened on Friday that I wanted to talk about now because the rest of them happened on Saturday. And during ACE conferences, there's usually always meetups. This is something where basically it's not, obviously nothing is required. You can go to whatever you want. But there are meetups that happen during conferences. And for example, like I'll read the list right now. On Friday, there were were mature acers, so 55 plus. There's a pride meetup on the bat, autism on, that should be spectrum meetup on Orion, the ACE Volunteer Social for any volunteers over at the Miami River Brew House. There's an Alfie, which is the American Log Flume enthusiast, the log ride, of course, the Charlie Brown log flume, women's ride, which I did at Banshee. That was fun. Young adults, river ride raft, family. So yeah, this is just a way. There's usually a time set and a ride, and it's meant for peers from these different groups to meet up, get to know each other, maybe take a photo, maybe get on a ride. So I did the women's one. Did anybody else go to any of the meetups?
I did. I went to a few of the meetups, and yeah, it's so great to meet people and spend time with them in the queue. I had a great conversation with Ben from the YouTube team, who also used to edit the podcast. But yeah, we got to talk about our love of log flumes during the Alfie meetup, and then we're going to the others. Ben was talking about we should have like a punch card for these events, and every meetup that you go to, you get a punch or a sticker or a tassel or something. And we'll just encourage people to go to more of them and meet up. So I think we're going to start that during CoasterCon. So I'm excited about that.
How about we go the Swifty route and we do friendship bracelets?
Oh, I like that. I like that.
And you get to
My
trade
sister been waiting
friendship
for that,
bracelets.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, it's a great way to connect with people and run into people. If you're going around the park and doing different things, this is a way to come back and get back with a group. And it's a totally fun way to connect.
I think Bob, you and I were at the volunteers one, and is that like right around the time where Liz, who does the show notes for the show, was texting us and say, "Hey, you've got to meet Costco Joe," and so she from afar arranged, because he was, I guess, right by us, and we had never met him, so like arranged this informal meetup via text messaging.
Yeah,
for
I
us
met
to meet
Costco
one of her
Joe.
friends. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, thanks, Liz. We met Costco
Well,
Joe.
There you go. So we got to give her a call out, because that was fun, because he was hilarious.
Let's get to it. Was the behind the scenes tour of Diamondback. I did that as well. Spent a little bit less time there than I did on the Beast, but again, that was really cool to be able to just see a different side of Diamondback, to be able to get videos, and we could also see the train going by as well. Just a really cool behind the scenes thing that we got to do. And then at 3:30, it was time for the story of a lovely lady. If you know anything about the history of Kings Island, then you know that there is a famous, legendary episode of the Brady Bunch called, yes, the Brady Bunch, like from the 1970s TV show called Cincinnati Kids. It was an episode that was filmed in Kings Island. If you remember, Mike Brady is given a presentation, is able to bring his kids, and they rode the rides, and they filmed in the park with extras and actual park goers there, and they rode the red racer, on camera. And it was pretty incredible to be able to sit in the Kings Island Theater and watch this episode all together. I really loved, obviously it was my first time there, so I had just spent, a day and a half in this park, and then being able to like rewatch the Brady Bunch and kind of see, oh yeah, that's right, we were just there, that's still there, that's different, that's still there. But there were people that clearly had been going to this park for years who, when they saw some things, maybe Bob, you can comment on this, had like emotional reactions. Maybe they hadn't seen this episode in a while, but they were like, oh, and cheering for different moments. Were you one of those people, Bob?
I wasn't going to Kings Island quite when that episode was done, but I was looking for certain things, because in that episode there is a sky ride, and that the one station is now over in it's now Camp Snoopy, but it's a gift shop that's there, and that used to be a station for the sky ride that went back and forth between the areas, that most people don't realize that's what it used to be. One other thing that I did learn, and Mike Kuntz said this in his presentation, in that episode where they're doing the deal and he's pitching Mike Brady is making the pitch to the park
like a
ownership.
Conference room.
That conference room. When I did, for those who listened to the episode with Chad Showalter, now I did not know this at the time that I was in that room. I was in that conference room. That was where we did our interview, at that exact conference table. And I can back up what Mike Kuhn says is, I don't know how they got it into the room. Yeah, that conference room table is so large. If they ever have to remove it from that room, they're going to have to take out walls.
Yeah.
It's gigantic.
Just chainsaw the table.
Well, at least put part of that in the Smithsonian then, that the Brady Bunch episode was filmed here.
Well, that's so cool that you get to go in it. You just didn't have your Yogi Bear poster or blueprints, I'm sure.
Right. I could have got one from the sign shop.
Exactly. Right. So after the episode of the Brady Bunch episode, Cincinnati Kids, aired for us in the theater, the lights stayed down and we pulled out some microphones and introduced the Gravity Group. The Gravity Group was there. How many of them were there? Like 12 of them were there and got up and did this really amazing presentation. Before we tell you about the presentation, though, you have to hear how Chad Miller from the Gravity Group started his presentation. We have that audio. Here it is.
Here's a story of a man named Larry who had hired 3 very lovely lads. All of them were engineers, just like Larry, Corey, Michael, and Chad. It's a story of a certain company who left these guys angry and annoyed. They were 4-man coaster designers, and they were unemployed. Until one day when they all made a decision. Instead of sitting around feeling just like poop, these 4 guys could somehow form a company. And that's the way we all became the Gravity Group. The Gravity Group. The Gravity Group. That's the way we became the Gravity Group.
That is a great take on the Brady Bunch song, especially from those guys. That for anybody that knows the history of the Gravity Group, he had the place laughing so hard after he did that. It absolutely was perfect.
It was perfect. That was so cute that he did that and wrote that for us. And then the Gravity Group gave us about a 45-minute presentation on their company, on the history. There was a slide show. They brought, they demoed the vertical pieces of wood versus the horizontal pieces of wood track, and showed us why, what they figured out in their time. And it was really wonderful. I thought it was great. Anybody else have takeaways from that presentation?
That was really neat how they're talking about the prefabricated track and how they were saying if you have a deck of cards and you have one card on top of another, and it's if that's like the track and the train goes over that, that's going to bend a little. But if you turn those cards vertical, it's a little harder to move that way. So that was interesting hearing about that. It was also great hearing about the coaster that was built in the backyard, which I believe he was on the podcast a while ago. So it's neat to see him live and in person talking about that.
We'll have to look for that episode and put it in the show notes, because it's a pretty interesting story how the city said no, but he said, well, what if I put it in a greenhouse, because he could get the approval to have a greenhouse in his backyard. So it's pretty funny. So we'll
John,
definitely find that.
I thought that was interesting that you didn't even realize that he worked for the Gravity Group now. When you interviewed him for the show,
when I interviewed him, he wasn't working at Gravity Group, so it was perfect. So it was kind of fun to see it took me a second to realize it, and then when I did, I was like, oh wait. So, but we'll definitely have to find that for the show notes, because I really think Gravity Group has a niche where they're really being successful at keeping some of these older coasters smooth, and it's really a niche that I'm glad to see is continuing, because you lose quite a bit of wooden roller coasters over time. So it's definitely one of the really cool and kind of, for us coaster nerds, a really kind of in-depth and kind of nerdy thing to talk about, but I would love to do a deep dive on how they design that, because it is really pretty impressive how they can just pick out the pieces that need it and leave the rest of the coaster alone.
And this is not the first time that I've seen these guys present. They did a Ace regional event a couple of years ago for Christmas, and they came in and they said, the future of wood is wood. They are so dedicated to keeping wooden coasters running and doing everything that they can to make them smooth and fun. And again, the Gravity Group, they do such a great job at coming in and revamping older coasters, and just, you don't even know that they've worked on them by the time they're done. And that's probably the point, I would guess. But again, so much good stuff that they do, and I hope they continue to work on these things for a long time.
Yeah, I'm just glad that they can talk about it now, because remember at No Coaster Con a couple of years ago, they couldn't talk about what they were doing. So I'm glad that it's a little more open now, because a lot of it was secret back in the day.
Right, and such a great team between Kings Island and the Gravity Group preserving these coasters. And how you said earlier, Jessica, about Diamondback and everything looking so refreshed, and they put so much work and effort into it. And Bainham Solutions, they did a great job refreshing Diamondback last year. And Bainham Solutions, Chris and Melissa, they're actually going to be at CoasterCon next month, and they're going to tell some of their great stories. But yeah, Adventure Express, which how the park refurbished that, brought back some theming and lighting. And Rick Bastrop, who is the mastermind behind Adventure Express and some other attractions, he's going to be on an upcoming episode of the podcast. Right, Bob?
And he's got a really great story about Adventure Express that you do not want to miss.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. Yeah. So thank you so much to the Gravity Group, if you're listening, for showing up. And of course, Hunter Lawrence for being around all weekend. A lot of you were around all weekend. It was great to get to know some of you. And thank you so much for that awesome presentation. We loved it. We had dinner afterwards and the silent auction. The team that put together the silent auction, along with the Kings Island, what a great job you all did. They had some really amazing items in there. I saw Son of Beast blueprints with pins and bolts. I saw an Orion banner, the Beast wheel, and a pen made by one of the Gravity Group woodworkers. Of course, the sign that you saw that being made in the sign shop that said the Beast and American Coaster Enthusiasts, the Scrambler car, and they donated all of this for our charity, which is just amazing. For those of you who are not familiar, we are a 501c3, and we were able to make donations to the archives, the preservation, and of course, the National Roller Coaster Museum. And I believe I have the total here. And of course, then I'll get to the surprise item right after this. We raised a total from our silent auction of $6,075. So shout out to everybody who bid, to everybody who was able to donate. And thank you so much. The Archives Preservation and NRCMA were to split it between the three of them. So amazing. And it was announced there at the dinner that I think it was Steve Burdo, events director Steve Burdo, stood up and said, we have a special announcement, and they just got their license. They got the license for Snoopy's Soapbox Racer, the brand new coaster that had not opened at the time of a spring conference. And they were going to allow one car of 20 people to ride Snoopy Soapbox Racer of ACE members before the public, and we could bid on them. So you were bidding on yourself plus your plus one. So 10 different people. There was a separate auction sheet for the front row, a separate auction sheet for the back row. And does anybody have a guess of how much we raised from that?
My guess would be $1,000.
Higher.
Higher than $1,000?
Yes.
$1,500.
Higher, Derek.
What? I don't believe it. How much?
We raised
$2,000.
Nope, not that high. $1,715. So you can divide that by 10. or by 20 and see how much your seat would have cost. But I know the ACE members who did that were absolutely thrilled. My friends on Instagram, A to Z Thrills, they posted their YouTube video about their experience being able to go on that, and just so exciting. And in fact, before we left the park, we were able to speak to our friend Chad Showalter again about Snoopy Soapbox Racer, which opened the week after we were just at a spring conference. And he was able to just tell us a couple more things about the opening of the Camp Snoopy area and Snoopy Soapbox Racers. And we have that interview for you right here.
It's an expansion of our Planet Snoopy area here in the park, and we are just so excited for it to open. It is going to feature, of course, a new family boomerang coaster, Snoopy Soapbox Racers, but what I'm excited about is it's not just a coaster. We're not just adding a coaster to Kings Island. We're adding a new play area that's covered. Our parents have said we need more shade over in Planet Snoopy. With Eagle Scout Acres, they're going to have that. And it'll have a playground under there where kids can play while parents recharge. It'll have a stage that the Peanuts will come out and perform camptivities that the kids can participate with. And also a new place to eat, Pigpen's Mess Hall. It's going to feature camp-style food and just things that kids love to eat. And one of my things I'm looking forward to the most is what we're calling the Pigpen's PB&J pie. And it's a deep fried peanut butter and jelly. I don't know how else to describe it. It sounds incredible. I had actually a sample a couple of weeks ago, and it's crunchy and just pure awesome.
That sounds amazing and totally on brand for the Peanuts. So
Yes.
I think that that's really exciting.
Yeah.
But I heard that you just got on the coaster for the first time today. So I have to hear about your experience on it.
Yes, Snoopy Soapbox Racers. I had the honor of riding it today. We had a photo shoot in the park, and I was able to hop on. And let me tell you, I'm so excited for our guests to ride it, because we've never had a coaster like this before for kids. And it's really the story of our Planet Snoopy area. We like to think of it as the kids' coaster capital of the world, because we provide 5 coaster experiences in here, starting from when you're very small, riding the Great Pumpkin Coaster, but also providing graduating up through the ranks to where you're riding an inverted coaster with our Woodstock's air rail, and even this family boomerang coaster with Snoopy Soapbox Racers. You can get a full education on coasters before you go out into the main park where the thrill coasters are.
It's true. We got to get them early.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
We got to get them started on the Coaster Love early. I also understand that there's sort of a story behind Snoopy Soapbox Racers. There's sort of a story to the coaster and the queue and on the ride itself. Can you kind of
Yeah, absolutely. The Snoopy Soapbox Racers is part of Camp Snoopy. So every summer at Camp Snoopy, all the kids at the end of the summer, they make their own soapboxes, and they race each other at the end, and it takes place at the recreation building for the camp, and everyone lines up and races. And this particular story, when they are almost at the finish line, everything stops and they complete the same course but only backwards. So pretty interesting year in the Soapbox Derby race for Camp Snoopy.
And each of the cars is dedicated to a different character, is that correct?
Yeah, each character has created their own car.
Yes.
And you're hopping into it, and you'll be able to tell, of course, Snoopy's Red Baron themed car is up front, and I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but Charlie Brown's is way in the back in car 10. So
Yeah, but if it goes backwards, doesn't that mean that Charlie wins for once?
and that's the big debate, right? Is Charlie winning or is Snoopy winning? And we're going to let the fans discuss that and work that out.
Controversial.
So Chad Showalter did so much for Ace this weekend, and Snoopy Soapbox Racers, of course, is now open, and he gathered so much of the prizes for the silent auction. And also we want to shout out to Mark Davidson, Ace member, who does so much work for the auction. So thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Of course, after the silent auction, everybody went over to the presentation at Kings Island Theater. Go ahead and listen to our last episode to make sure you hear that presentation. It was Dennis Spiegel, the founder and CEO of International Theme Park Services, Inc., Vice President Mike Kuntz, and of course, a plaque presentation from Elizabeth Ringus. You'll have to hear who it was for in that episode. And then it was time for ERT. The park closed to everyone else, and we had ERT from 9 to 11 p.m. with our ice cream and soft drink snacks on Dodge 'em, Monster, Shake, Rattle, and Roll, Backlot Stunt Coaster, Orion, and the Beast. Again, if you missed those first night rides, you got them that second night. And finally, we come to the last day, to Sunday. The last day at Kings Island, they opened up the park at 8 a.m. for us with ERT on the Great Pumpkin Coaster, then in Vertigo, Woodstock Express, Diamondback, Woodstock's Air Rail, Boo Blasters on Boo Hill with the lights on, and Delirium. The final day again was group photo at the Beast, first ride of the day on the Beast, behind the scenes tour of the Banshee. They had to split it into two parts. There's like a part 1 and a part 2, and Adventure Express. Oh my goodness. And the Bat. So there's just so many great behind the scenes experiences that day. And then a lights on tour of Hotel Saint Michel, which is one of their Halloween haunt mazes, which I guess is available to walk through all year. Did anybody get to do that?
So that's a haunted house that you can go through during the haunt season, and that's one of my favorite haunts at Kings Island. And I remember one actor in there. He said, "The elevator's closed." That was his scare line. "The elevator's closed. You have to take the stairs," which I thought was funny. So yeah, it was really cool to see the inside of that, and without scary actors jumping out at you.
And then the final moment of a spring conference was behind the scenes experience of a Flight of Fear and a peek inside the spaghetti bowl. Did anyone get a chance to do that?
Oh, that was way cool. I've ridden that ride a number of times, never with the lights on, but to see it in motion inside with the lights on, that was unbelievably cool to see exactly what it is. Because you think you know as you're riding it, you think you know what the elements are, but you get inside of it and you see the train going through and you're like, yeah, that's not what I thought at all. And it's a lot higher than what I thought it was, too. I thought it ran a lot closer to the ground than what it actually does. But very cool to see it with the lights on and walk through there. We got to actually go from basically one side of the ride to the other. They opened up 2 garage doors for us on opposite sides, so they kind of funneled us in on one side and let us go through and take all the pictures that we wanted, and there was really no restrictions. I mean, we couldn't go near the track itself, obviously, because it was an operation, but as long as we stayed behind a fence, we could take as many pictures, as many videos, as many whatever we wanted and walk through there. Now, what was also cool about being in there is they do a lot of storage in there. So you got to see other parts of other coasters and other things in that building as you were walking through. So it was legitimately a working area that they allowed us to go through, which was very cool on Kings Island's part, because again, to get to go into somewhere like that, that is a once in a lifetime for some people. Yeah. You don't get to see that very often, to go inside and to hear it in operation, to hear the sound effects as they launch a train. And again, because of the way that train launches, you don't see anything, and all of a sudden, boom, train, hello. And it's racing through the spaghetti bowl, and just an amazing thing to be able to see that and see how the ride progresses through, and then for it to return back into the station. It's like, it's here, it's through, it's gone. But everybody was taking videos, everybody was taking pictures, and once one of those once in a lifetime things that you just don't get to do on a normal day.
Yeah. What did you think, Bob, about the maintenance? Like, they had scaffolding, they had lifts, they had like all of the support beams, nothing was painted. And they had all the writing, like chalk writing on the side of their testing stuff, because they never bothered painting it, because you never see it. So it's really interesting to see the inside of the I guess inside the maintenance piece, and see something that you're not supposed to see. And So that was kind of cool. But what'd you think of the lift, the little pod that they had where it's like a part of a crane, and they put a person inside of it and they pull it up, and then they can check the track.
Yeah, that was really neat because you don't think about those things. I mean, we all think about maintenance, or we think about the coasters that are outside, and you can see, the maintenance that they do on those. That's easy to get to. This is a spaghetti bowl. No track is easy to get to in there, but they have this, again, it's kind of like a cage almost, a heavy duty cage at that they can lift up on a crane. A person can go in there. They can drop this thing pretty much anywhere in the spaghetti bowl that they need to for maintenance. There was also, and I don't know if you caught this, John, there are a lot of catwalks that are in there too that you don't normally see, where they get to some of the block sections and some of the brake runs, and there's the catwalks are there and steps that you don't notice while the ride is in motion, obviously, because you're going fast enough to where you're not going to catch it, and they're painted black. So you don't see them normally. But I did catch a lot of that with the lights on. Jessica, you almost forgot to mention the great light show that we saw Saturday night.
Oh, I did. I completely forgot. That was a surprise for us, wasn't it?
It was. It was one of those things where they said at the presentation, hey, join us at 11 o'clock when the park closes. We want you to see what's going to be our brand new song for the year. And then the laser light show that they have that's going to run during the season started up. We got a huge surprise at the end of it. Now, I've seen these shows for years. They always do a great job. They added more lasers this year. I can tell you that much. But one of the lasers and some of the things that they did was actually on the Eiffel Tower itself. They projected images onto that with the lasers. And at the very end, they closed it out with a tribute to the American coaster enthusiasts, scrolled our logo and our name on the Eiffel Tower. I wish I would have known it was coming, or I would have videoed it.
I got
that was really cool.
10 coaster enthusiasts was what I got on my phone. Like just the tail and a Ken coaster instead of, but I missed the America. Yeah, that was really, really incredible. And sorry, I forgot to mention that to the park. But that was really cool. That was a very neat moment. And so I look forward to all excited for all the people who get to see that summer show this summer. What was it called? Under the Stars, I think.
I believe that's what they're calling it. And Jessica, I know you're from the West Coast, but please come back to Ohio and experience Kings Island again.
I really need to, because even after 3 days, I feel like I know I didn't get to do everything. I mean, basically because I was focusing so much on the behind the scenes and all the presentations and all of the fun little things. So I feel like there's still even more to do. I need more blue ice cream. I need more Buckeyes. I'm going to head back. But this to me was just, if not the most fun, one of the top 3 ACE events I'd ever been to. I thought it was a blast. The vibes were high. The host park was incredible. It was just really phenomenal. I know, Derek, you have some final stats about the weekend too, don't you?
Yeah, it was a sellout event. There were 751 members from 32 states plus Washington, D.C., 2 Canadian provinces, and also there were ACE members from the United Kingdom that came all the way to Kings Island for this event. So everyone had a blast. We want to thank Chad Showalter at Kings Island, of course, and Alexa and Elizabeth and everyone for doing everything that you did for the ACE members. It was an awesome time. And the 2 most attended spring conferences ever in ACE history both happened at Kings Island. So people definitely want more events at Kings Island, I think.
Yeah, I think that is definitely clear. Any final thoughts from anyone else before we move on?
It was good to have you all in the state of Ohio.
It was so
thanks
great
for coming.
to be there. Thanks, Bob.
We loved being at your home park. It was a highlight of the year for sure. Thanks to Steve Berto and Dan Jones from the events committee for putting on such an awesome event.
It really was incredible. And thank you to John Davidson, Doug Perry, Derek Perry, and Bob Randolph for joining me to recap that amazing weekend on the podcast today. And listeners, if you're feeling like you missed out, never fear. There are some amazing ACE events coming up in June. Let's hear about them right now. On Saturday, June 1st, Jess Nemec is hosting 2 online events, one for World Roller Coaster Appreciation Month Trivia 2024 and one for mature Acers. There are 2 informal events hosted by Ace Mid-Atlantic on the day after Ace Dives. That's June 2nd. The first one is Meet Me at BGW Roller Coaster Insider Tour at Busch Gardens Williamsburg in Williamsburg, Virginia. After Ace Dives, take a peek behind the curtain at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Great coasters with the tour at 9 a.m. Learn the physics of how the roller coasters operate. This tour visits the maintenance areas of 4 coasters plus the Verbolten Special Effects Building, and you get priority ride time. If you register, make sure to go ahead and comment on the Facebook event page or reach out to Ace member Will Rook, who looks forward to meeting up with all Ace members joining the tour. And if you can't make the tour or it's filled up already, meet up with Will and other enthusiasts later in the day by 1 p.m. at Verbolten to hang out a bit and venture into the Black Forest together. And the second one on June 2nd is for those who are going to King's Dominion the day after Ace Dives on Sunday, June 2nd. Meet me in the queue. This is an informal event at 1 p.m. Meet up at the entrance sign for Grizzly and look for Ace member Shannon Somerville wearing an Ace shirt. On Saturday, June 8th, hosted by Ace New Jersey, it's Seaside Screams 24 at Casino Pier in Seaside Heights, New Jersey. This will include morning ERT, all-day ride wristbands, additional perks, and activities. Unfortunately, the registration for CoasterCon this year has already passed, but you can still register for West Coast Acers, a post-con event on Saturday, June 22nd at Six Flags Magic Mountain, hosted by Ace Pacific Southwest until June 12th. There will be a Q&A with park ride updates, trivia and prizes, informal takeovers, and nighttime ERT on Wonder Woman Flight of Courage, Twisted Colossus, Scream, and Batman the Ride. Still in SoCal the next day? We got you covered. Sunday, June 23rd, hosted by Ace Pacific Southwest, an Ace informal meetup at the San Diego County Fair in Del Mar, California. This informal meetup means that you are responsible for purchasing your own ticket, just a chance to get together and enjoy the fair. On Sunday, June 23rd, hosted by Six Flags Over Texas, it's Coasting for Kids, the Inversion Tour. Any participant who raises a minimum of $150 for Give Kids the World Village can enjoy park admission, special perks, a behind-the-scenes opportunity, and earn great incentive prizes. On Saturday, June 29th, hosted by Ace Eastern Pennsylvania at Dorney Park in Wildwater Kingdom, it's Clownin' Around at Dorney Park. More details are coming soon. Just a reminder, if you're wondering why I didn't list a certain event that's happening in June, it's probably because the registration has passed. We don't want you to miss the registration for any upcoming Ace events, so make sure you're checking the website, ridewithace.com, under events calendar, but also follow Ace everywhere you consume your social media. We're on Facebook, X, Threads, Pinterest, LinkedIn. Make sure you're subscribed to Ace's pages on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and Discord. Follow us everywhere to stay on top of all the coaster and park news coming out and to hear what your Ace membership has to offer. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast. Give us 5 stars if you can, rate and review. And if you have any questions, comments, or podcast episode pitches for us, please reach out to podcast@aceonline.org. Thanks for listening. Hope you get to ride a coaster today.
Ride With Us is produced by the American Coaster Enthusiasts, a registered 501c3 organization. Visit ridewithace.com for additional information, and we will see you at the parks.